Shalom everyone, welcome back. Today our Parsha point is going to focus on the Seder, on Pesach. So the most exciting night of the year is Pesach. And our sages wanted us as parents to make it exciting, to have sweets that the kids are not used to having. They're supposed to come to this night filled with excitement and happiness, which means it's a good idea to learn the songs of the night. Not only the Manishtana, not only the Haggadah, not only the Dayenu, but all the songs of the night. The more you sing, the happier the kids will be, the more exciting and memorable the night will be. And we want this night to be memorable. We want it to be filled with positivity. Our sages said a concept that is often attributed to the Greek philosophers. You've probably heard that a good story has pathos, has ethos, right? There has to be a moment of despair. There has to be the great redemption. Well, this concept really begins with the Seder. On the night of Pesach, our sages say, Matchil b'gnut umsayem b'shevach. You have to share with the children that our history has its down moments. We have the dark sides of our history from which came the light of the Seder. So our story has many, many starting points, the story of the Seder. And we're going to start with the story of Yosef and his brothers, because a thinking person is going to say, why am I celebrating Pesach? Hashem put us into this to begin with. So why am I celebrating that he took us out of it? And the answer, we know that Avram Avinu had a covenant, the Brit Ben Abtarim, where Hashem promised him that the Jews would get out of suffering and inherit the land of Israel. Now, at the Seder, we say, Vehi, that covenant, the Brit Ben Abtarim, Shamdal Avotenu Velanu, that stood by us. It stood by our forefathers. It wasn't only one who wanted to destroy us. We've had so many enemies in our history. Hashem saves us from their hands, and it all goes back to the Brit Ben Abtarim. So when Hashem promised Avram, you should know, your descendants are going to be strangers in a foreign land. There will be part of that time where they will be in servitude, and then they're going to get out and come back and inherit the land of Israel. That covenant, the Brit Ben Abtarim, was a covenant not only about Egypt, it was a covenant about all of Jewish history. So Hashem says we're going to spend 400 years before we have the land of Israel. But Hashem doesn't say how much of those 400 years will be in suffering. So our sages say that when Yosef and his brothers had baseless hatred between them, when there was sinat chinam, when the brothers said, we don't like the preferential treatment that Yaakov is giving Yosef. Yosef's getting that special coat, which we're not getting. So because of that, we ended up suffering in Mitzrayim. Meaning, when Hashem made the covenant, when Hashem said, you're going to be in a foreign land 400 years, and then part of that time you're going to suffer and then come back to Israel. Hashem didn't say how much of that would be suffering. We could have remained in the land of Israel as strangers, foreigners in the land, for all of the 400 years. It was not decreed that we would be in Egypt. It was not decreed that we would suffer. It was only when Am Yisrael lost their height and stature, when they were vayishritzu, when the Jewish people started behaving like vermin, when we lost the elevated status that a human being is supposed to have, it's only then that we started really suffering. Beginning with the baseless hatred between Yosef and his brothers, evolving into the Jewish people losing a lot of the status they should have had as elevated people, and so we brought upon ourselves the suffering of Egypt. That was not in Hashem's decree. Hashem's decree was it would take 400 years of not owning the land before we would ultimately, yes, own the land. So our story began with the covenant, the Bris Ben Absarim, and then it evolved into Yosef and his brothers. And then finally we come into Mitzrayim, and in Mitzrayim the Egyptians are really, really giving us a hard time, right? We know that there are letters in the Torah, Menatzpach, Mem Non Tzadi Pei Chaf, right? Menatzpach are 5 letters that are doubled in the Torah script. And every one of those double letters represents a different exile. The letter Pei is the exile of Mitzrayim. So Pesach is the holiday that we left Mitzrayim. Paro is the king who made us suffer in Mitzrayim. Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be 80 years old, which is the numerical value of Pei, when we are in Mitzrayim. And all of the night is about speaking. Peh, our mouth has to speak and tell over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So, Yetzias Mitzrayim, when we were in Egypt, our story begins with the covenant, with the promise that we're going to get out. And then, when we're in Mitzrayim, we start being pagans. The Jewish people start worshiping idols. One of the idols in Egypt was the firstborns. In Egypt, they worshipped the firstborn. They said they were godly. And so when Hashem said that on this night, the night of Pesach, Hashem would hit the firstborn, Hashem would destroy the gods of Egypt, and Hashem would take us out of Mitzrayim, Hashem was telling us there's going to be a shift. You're no longer going to believe in the power of the firstborn or the sheep or the zodiac of the sheep on the month of Nisan. And this night you're going to see that I am running the show. And this is where we'll pick up Ezrat Hashem next time. Everyone should have a beautiful Yom Tov. As I said before, it's the most exciting night of the year. Let's get those sweets ready for our kids. Let's get the stories ready so we can make it the beautiful, meaningful night it's supposed to be. Chag Sameach.